what's going on, Jam Fam? So with the Candyland update coming, we are now getting 4 new Mythic Gears added to the game, bringing our total up to 6 overall. And today, I want to talk about the idea that Mythic Gears are just 3rd star powers being added for each brawler. And while I don't 100% disagree with that, I do want to talk about my thoughts on Mythic Gears and what I think they actually are supposed to be doing and what I really don't like about them right now. It's a short-term problem, but I do want to address that. I do want to bring it up and talk about that. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. Real quick, I want to go over the 4 new Mythic Gears getting added to the game so we can start the discussion about like how gears are set up and what I really don't like about the Mythic Gear specifically. All right, so the first new Mythic Gear added is going to be for Crow. He's going to get a gear that makes it so he does more damage with his poison every tick. I think at max level, it's going to be like 30 extra damage. I think this is a pretty solid Mythic Gear. It is a nice addition, and it does pair pretty well with his Carrying Crow star power, which I've always personally thought is a little underrated, but honestly, I think like the combination of these two is going to make that star power seem a lot better in the long run. Next up, Sandy's getting a Mythic Gear, and what Sandy's Mythic Gear is going to do is make it so that if you and an enemy are inside of Sandy's super, you're going to take less damage from that enemy. It's an okay gear. I don't think it's amazing, and it does pair nicely with his healing wind star power, but if you're still a Rude Sands type of person, you don't actually have to run this one in my opinion. All right, Spike's getting the 3rd Mythic Gear added in this update, and this is a super good one. Honestly, I think this is probably one of the better ones. It's going to make it so that Spike Super slows people an extra amount, and it basically guarantees a kill if you can land the super right on top of somebody. It's going to make it devastatingly slow, and in my opinion, if you increase a slow by any amount, it's always going to be super annoying to play around. So yeah, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't want to run this gear on Spike. And then the last gear added is going to be for Leon. Now, all this does is give him an extra second of invisibility. To me, this gear is honestly going to be the most underwhelming of the bunch. It's only 1 extra second, which can be a lot, and it can help you get a little bit closer to somebody if you're running smoke trails or something, and it gives you an extra 1,000 HP if you are running his healing star power. But overall, I don't think that 1 second is going to make the biggest difference in the world. It's a little bit underwhelming, but they could buff it in the future. All right, so now that we've gone through the 4 gears getting added into this update, let's talk about the 3rd star power argument. Now, this is an argument that I don't hate. I do understand where people are coming from, because basically all these gears do is enhance a ability of a brawler to some extent. For example, Jean gives him extra range on his super, and Tix gives him extra HP on his tick head. I totally understand why you might feel that's just a star power, and I'm not going to argue about that, because all star powers do is enhance abilities on brawlers. So they essentially do the same job. Now, what I'm going to say is that if we call gears equipment for brawlers, which is kind of how I've always looked at it personally, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but if we're going to call it equipment for brawlers, then we can kind of compare it to like an RPG. And in an RPG, you kind of set up equipment in a way where the lower level stuff gives very basic upgrades, where the higher level stuff gives you a lot more bigger upgrades. And in some cases, they even enhance your abilities. All right, so low level RPG gear is normally just going to give you super basic stuff like more damage, more HP, just basically small raw stat upgrades. Where mid-level gear is normally going to give you more specific or more unique stat upgrades, something like critical hit chance, critical hit rate, or ultimate charge. And then high-level equipment in RPGs will normally give you like really big stat upgrades, but it'll also give you like more specified like abilities stuff. So like it'll give you like more duration on your status effects, or it'll give you more range on your attacks, that type of stuff. And that's basically how Brawl Stars has set up their gear, in my opinion. If you look at super rare gear, you have damage increase when you're on low health, you have extra healing when you start healing up, and then you also have speed in bushes. But I will admit that the outliers are obviously going to be shield and vision. Those two are kind of like extra abilities in my opinion. So those are kind of outliers, and I would listen to the argument that those should technically be epic gear, not quite super rare. But then you look at epic gear, and then you have reload speed and you have supercharge rate, which I already said ultimate charge rate is something you might see on mid-level gear in an RPG, and I would argue that reload speed, because we don't have crit damage, would kind of be like the equivalent. It does technically up your damage by a significant amount, more than just percentage increase on your bullets. So yeah, overall, I would say those would be the equivalent in an RPG. Now, if we look at Mythic Gear, for the most part, they just look at enhancing brawlers' supers. So Tick gets more HP on his head, Jean gets more range, Leon gets more duration on his super, Sandy gets extra utility, and then Spike gets extra slow. The only outlier here is Crow, where it enhances his normal attacks by increasing the poison on it, and as well as his super poison. So Crow's the outlier here. All the other 5 are all just enhancements to Brawler Supers. So when you look at it that way, yes, you can argue that it is just an extra star power, because a lot of star powers just enhance Brawler Supers, but I'm not going to look at it that way. I'm going to say that it's just enhancing a Brawler's abilities. So for the most part, yes, they're technically the same, but they're also different. Now, I don't dislike any of these gears. I think they're all very solid, and I think they're all very useful for all the brawlers that have them. But that's the issue I have with Mythic Gears, is that the brawlers that have them are all, for the most part, pretty high up there in rankings. In fact, the 4 that are getting added in this update are all legendary brawlers. And I would argue those are the 4 most popular legendary brawlers out of the 6 that we have. And then with Gene being a mythic brawler, which is like the 2nd or 3rd highest level of rarity, depending on how you want to look at it, the only truly accessible brawler is going to be Tick. And in my opinion, I think that's my major issue with these Mythic Gears, is that for the most part, they're being added to the higher rarity brawlers first, and I feel like you should probably focus on getting them on all brawlers across the board. Like, spread it out a little bit more. Like, try to get it on some super rares, try to get it on mythics, try to get it on epics, stuff like that. Now, the cynical part of me wants to say they're doing this on purpose, especially with the removal of boxes now. Basically, the idea is that it's going to help try to sell your legendary brawlers a little bit quicker. I don't know if that's 100% true. I don't feel like making the whole ethical argument about that, but I don't understand why you would do it all on the legendary brawlers first and not spread it out a little bit, especially to like the lower rarity brawlers. Like, why wouldn't you want to do it on like Colt and Shelly, who are low level brawlers, but they're also still very popular, especially amongst newer players? Now, obviously that's a problem for the short term. I don't know if that's going to get resolved as we go further down the line from here, but just in the short term right now, it feels very icky to me. Like, I don't like that it's just legendaries and a mythic and then one low-level brawler who is currently a trophy road brawler, but they're going to change in this upcoming update. I would love to see them add things to lower rarity brawlers very soon. Stuff like Barley's attack getting wider so it has a bigger area of effect, or like Rico's bounces getting more bouncy on his super so it does a little more damage or has a little more range, something like that. And selfishly, I would like to see BB's knockback get charged a little bit faster or do a little more damage or something. But overall, I think that just having it on the high legendary brawlers right now is a mistake, and I would like to see that remedied very soon. But the main point I want to make here is technically Mythic Gears do feel like 3rd star powers, but when you break it down by like gear association, like equipment and like RPGs, I feel like they do the job that they're supposed to do, which is enhance brawler supers or their natural abilities, in the example of like Crow's Poison. But overall, I don't think they're just like bad for the game. I don't think it's just 3rd star powers. And if you do want to argue that they're just 3rd star powers, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm not going to argue it out of it. I just want to tell you guys my perspective on that. But what do you guys think about these Mythic Gears? Do you think they're just 3rd star powers, or do you kind of agree that they kind of right now are just enhancing brawler supers and they're not really the exact same thing, but they do kind of feel the same way? Let me know down in the comments. Anyway, if you enjoyed my rambling, make sure you leave a like on the video and consider dropping a sub as well. And with all that out of the way, we're done with this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.